everything, and I mean everything, only comes after taking real, tactical, tangible steps. It is okay to have a bad day. Why would someone deliberately, intentionally self-sabotage their life? Do I want that type of a breakthrough? Hey there, I'm Sagar Soni. If you are a chronic overthinker, a wannabe productivity expert, and is having a hard time understanding how to squeeze productivity out of every waking minute, but also learn how to take a chill pill, then you are in the right place. Let's learn from successful people, YouTubers, book authors, podcasters, and every other stranger that I can get my hands on. Well, figuratively, let's learn how they balance their life. Welcome to Beyond the Speech. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Beyond the Speech. In today's episode, I'll be talking about this book, The Mountain Is You by Brianne Wiest. This book is not something groundbreaking. There are countless books out there that talk about the same topic, the same things. But every now and then, you find yourself in a rut or if you find that you are losing track of your goals, not in a tactical or more actionable way, but more in a mindset way, then this book might just help you. It's an equivalent of watching a motivational video or clip by David Goggins or watching a YouTube video of Rocky Balboa running in the snow, but a more mellow version and not so in-your-face version of this. So that's why I would recommend that keep this book in your list, and the next time you feel like you are stuck in a more mindset way, then this book would be a good solution in that time. There are principles and points that I picked up from this book that I would be talking about today, but they are mainly focused on self-development, productivity, and mainly positive self-talk. The first principle is fixing self-sabotage. But before we even identify it, we need to understand what it even means. I mean, if you think about it, why would someone deliberately, intentionally self-sabotage their life? No one would do that, right? But then, for example, if you fear being alone, you may avoid this fear with the self-sabotaging tactic of staying in an abusive relationship. Or if you fear failure, then you would avoid this fear by not applying to that job, the dream job that you have, and quit your current one. Or if you fear being disliked, then you might avoid this fear by pretending to be someone that you are not. You see what Brianne is trying to say here? There are different examples there too. For example, in the world of fear of failure, someone would not even attempt to quit smoking or lose weight because they think that I have done this in the past. I know I'm going to fail, so why even bother this time? And I've done this myself too. Oh, I'm on a 16-week fat loss program. But why should I even bother if I know that my need of having a pizza slice is going to overpower me and throw me off track? I have failed countless times before, so why should I even bother now? You see where I'm going with this? That's what self-sabotage means. What Brianne is trying to say here is that we tend to develop these fears when we lack emotional and mental skills. That's what the main reason is behind this. These deficiencies develop due to certain life experiences. That's how we associate our experiences with the emotions that we feel. And that results in the lack of healthy emotion and mental skills. It's a defense mechanism that is deep-rooted in fear or unmet emotional needs. So the point is, how do we fix this point of view? Now, if you listen to Jocko Willink, he's the author of Extreme Ownership. He recommends that you just call it laziness, because the answer to laziness is simple. It's developing discipline, right? For example, if you don't like talking to people because you had a crappy experience being a public speaker before, now you have connected that anytime you speak in public, you are going to have the same experience. That's what you have connected it to. If you listen to Jocko, he'll just say that stop being a child and just sign up for the next seminar, prepare for it as much as you can. Or volunteer for that work presentation the next time the opportunity comes up, because that will require discipline. So that's up to you. If you are strong-willed, then sure, call it laziness, because the answer is plain and simple, discipline. But if you aren't Jocko, if you are a normal average person, then the other way of doing this is identifying what the self-sabotaging behavior is. Check where the deficiency of mental and emotional skills come from, and then we overcome these behaviors. So how do we do that? Let's say we start noting down what those behaviors are. Maybe it's the lack of commitment that is necessary to achieve goals, or nurturing relationships, or you engage in relationships that negatively impact you. Sometimes There are examples out there where people rely on others or even the society to guide their actions or goals. Or you would rarely engage with people, information, or even situations that feel new, because new is really uncomfortable. Now, in real world examples, this looks like you picking fights with your colleagues or family. Your goals are too abstract and high, or you lack self-confidence and your goals are too low. That's also a thing. Or it could even mean that you don't speak up in situations where in your heart you know that you need to speak up right now to fix the situation. There are many examples out there of how your limiting behavior is impacting your day-to-day life. That's what Brianne is trying to say here. See, the reason of identifying and noting down is because you know the saying, what gets tracked gets fixed. And that is true for finances or habits, or in this case, self-sabotaging behaviors. When you're able to identify these specific, realistic, practical things that are caused by self-sabotaging behaviors, then you can see it right in front of you. And you can say that, okay, just for an example, I cannot control, I lack self-confidence, but I can control, let me speak at this very specific scenario. I cannot control, I cannot get six-pack abs, but I can control what I eat in my next meal. That's the kind of relation that we need to develop here. In terms of actionable steps, what I gather here is that as long as you just take the next step, it will give you the boost to take the following step. So if you are in that mode, identify the issue, really slow down, identify the issue, figure out what the only necessary step is right in front of you. Not the whole plan, just the first step. And I say this because if you think about it, mentally strong and properly regulated people are good planners. They know what comes next. They know what comes a few months down the road. They know what their entire roadmap looks like for a year, let's say. So if you become a good planner, do that and first identify the issue, take just the very next step, and that will open doors for the following steps that are about to show you what your target really looks like. And this could look like, just for an example, you want to wake up super early and start working out. Now that's too many steps in there. You need to fix your nighttime routine that allows you to wake up early, then you get to work out. Let's ignore the nighttime routine. Just in the morning, instead of trying to do too many things, let's just do one thing. I'm going to set my alarm 15 minutes ahead of my normal schedule. That's it. I'm going to do that for days and days, weeks, months in time. The reason I say that is because once you are able to make this your new normal, that will allow you to not dedicate so much energy towards this task. This becomes your new normal, and now you go towards the next task, which is really working out. That's the way of looking at it. Another example is that people tend to stay disorganized because they think that after organizing everything, now I need to sit down and do the real work. Let's get into the real work now. But because of that uncomfortable feeling, you never get organized. And in such cases, don't worry about the real work. Just get into the habit of, from now on, I'm always going to keep my surroundings, my environment organized. That's it. Do that. Make that part of your new identity. Fix your surroundings, build that environment, and then introduce the next step. Honestly, I know this sounds, people who are organized, they organized by default, it might sound silly to them. They might think, how is this even a problem? But I'm sure there are people out there who are in that mindset of not being tidy because that brings them in an uncomfortable state where now it's time to do the real work. So I'm not going to be organized at all. That's how I interpret this entire topic of self-sabotaging behavior. The term itself is self-explanatory. From the outside, it feels intentional, which is not really true. You really need to dig deep, and that's when you notice that it's not deliberate. It happens subconsciously. And that's what takes me to the next point of this book, which is emotional intelligence. What Brianne is emphasizing here is that the role of emotional intelligence is very important in overcoming self-sabotage. So self-sabotage, that is more often than not, happens unconsciously. In order to fix this, we need to bring it in the forefront of our mind. We need to consciously think about that. And how do we do that? We do that by slowing down. Because slowing down, in my experience, it puts things into a specific new perspective. It shows us how we feel in this exact situation. For example, you feel like crap because you are not doing something that takes you towards your goal. or you feel jealous of someone out there, or we feel down thinking, what's the point? I'm going to fail anyways. So I'm just going to sit here and have that negative self-talk. We notice all of this, right? We'll notice the internal conflicts that we have, the stress that we put on ourselves. We see the blocks that we constantly go through. Every person goes through this. And that's why Brianne talks about breakthroughs versus micro shifts. What she means here is that we all see different people and celebrities, sometimes even our friends, who got successful overnight. Those are breakthroughs in our minds. But obviously that success was not overnight. It wasn't the micro shifts. The micro shifts includes steps that they took day in and day out, multiple times a day, weeks, months, sometimes years on end. And in most cases, people who have had major breakthroughs, honestly, we don't want those types of breakthroughs. For example, I want to become a speaker, right? So, for example, someone just beat cancer and now is running speaking gigs on how it affects your life, how that person understands that, how it really impacts your life, and how do you overcome that challenge. So, that person is a speaker now. Do I want that type of a breakthrough? Obviously not. Or another example is this guy, Hal Elrod. He's the author of The Miracle Morning. If you look at his life, it's quite shocking. He had a major car accident where he wasn't even pulled out of the car for at least an hour. At the time, his heart stopped for 6 minutes. Later in life, found out that he is part of that small percentage of people who has this really rare type of cancer where the survival rate is less than 20 to 30%. He beat those odds. It sounds amazing, right? And now he's a public speaker and he wrote this book, The Miracle Morning. Do you want that type of a breakthrough? No, nobody wants that because it's quite shocking and traumatizing. But he wanted to sell this book, Miracle Morning, he wanted to sell 1 million of those copies before its first year anniversary. But he couldn't do that. It took him 6 years to reach that 1 million mark. So breakthrough and overnight success really came in those micro steps that he took day in and day out for 6 years straight. He really worked hard on those daily steps. That's why micro steps, micro shifts are more important than those breakthroughs. And I'll just give my own example. I mean, this could be for anything, starting a business, fitness world, starting an entrepreneurship, or a creative journey like YouTubing or podcasting. If I take my own example, I want to start this podcast so that I can talk to like-minded people. But do I just wait until magically a speaker guest comes on my show? No. I find topics to talk about that are tangential to the world that I want to be in, right? So I decide for myself, okay, this week I'm going to spend X amount of hours trying to reach out to 50 people. Probably 1% of those people will respond back to me. Now I have 1, 2, 3 guests that are willing to come to a brand new show. Let's say I have 3 guests now. If I want to increase that number, I need to spend more hours towards reaching out more people. All right, I have the guest. What's next now? I need to prepare for an interview. I need to see what I'm going to ask this guest who is willing to come on my show. Okay, everything's ready. What platform do I use to record this? Okay, I'm going to choose this platform. Okay, I need to make sure that my environment is fine. I need to make sure that my audio and video is properly recorded. Let's say everything is recorded. Now it's time to edit it. Wait, do I edit it myself or do I outsource it? Okay, it's edited now. How do I publish it to the world? I know how to do it on YouTube because I've done that in the past. But how do I make sure that it reaches all the podcasting platforms out there? So that's what a real micro step looks like on a daily basis for a small item, which is podcasting. It's boring, but it's necessary. And you didn't even see any of the problems that goes behind the scene. I just laid out the steps that anybody does if they want to run a podcast, right? But you didn't see that I'm only allowed to message people Instagram once with a limited number of characters until they respond back. So now I'm going to sit in their message request box on Instagram. Okay, maybe I should be emailing them. Find some way I figure out what their email address is. I'll email them, but then how do I make sure that it doesn't sit in their junk email and then they never get to see my email? So I look at their Instagram posts and I look at their YouTube videos and I comment them on those posts and tell them to go read my email or read my message. That's how I try to reach those people. You didn't see the amount of times I have recorded this and I have had issues recording my audio or the video, or there is an out of sync issue throughout this process. Let's say even I find guests. Let's say I found 3 guests. Now nobody's responding to my messages anymore. So how do I fill time and release more podcast episodes? I do an episode like this one where it's just me talking. That's what you're seeing right now. You see, there are so many small moving pieces in such a tiny little podcasting thing. Imagine something much more bigger and complex. But instead of being overwhelmed, that's my point here. Instead of being overwhelmed, how about we dissect the major project into small micro steps? And guess what? You will not even know what these micro steps are until you do it once, 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, maybe 100 times. Until then, you won't even know what those lessons are. And you need the reps to learn all of this. That's all it takes. More and more and more reps towards this. And when you do that enough time, you find that overnight success. You find that breakthrough that we see on Instagram and movies. That's what it's about. Don't wait for those breakthroughs. Instead, find the major target and divide the entire project into smaller steps. That's the point here. Slowing down really puts things into perspective, into a new perspective, and bring it up into the forefront of your mind. This way, at least, they are not abstract anymore. Your goals are not abstract anymore. And now it's your job to put actionable items daily associated with this goal. And once you start doing that, you put in enough reps, you will eventually melt away the procrastination and the self-doubt. See, the reason I went on this entire explanation of my actionable list is because everything is emotions driven. I hope we can all agree on this. One thing I have learned from so many books and so many podcasts that I listen to is that the feeling of accomplishment or feeling good overall or getting away from angry or negative feelings, everything, and I mean everything, only comes after taking real, tactical, tangible steps. It only comes after you take the steps. Saying, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to be positive, my life's awesome. I don't think that works. Sitting in that emotion definitely enlightens how it really shows you how you're feeling in the moment. But after that, if you want to change, if you want to get out of that state of emotions, then action is required, period. At least that's my opinion. It's as simple as that. Overcoming any kind of feelings requires some form of action. And that takes me to the third point, which is get comfortable with radical changes. The point of this principle is not do uncomfortable or hard things. As I said, that the book is not something groundbreaking. We all know this stuff and have faced it many, many times in our lives. But sometimes one lesson can be said in many, many ways. And there is one lesson, if one of them doesn't hit you, maybe the other one can. The way it was presented in this book, it really worked for me. When we talk about getting comfortable with radical things, it's easy to say, just do the hard things, right? But we need to understand a very important thing. And even I'm trying to learn this, obviously, everybody is. What we did in the last 5, 10, 15 years, what time we woke up, what we ate, the people we surrounded ourselves to, the discussions and arguments we got into, the environments that we lived in, we were cultivated from scratch from those tiny moments. So why would we think that creating a brand new future version of ourselves with new daily habits is going to be a cakewalk? Obviously, it's going to take a lot of hard work. With these new habits, we are about to create a whole new person in the future. So of course it's going to be difficult. Of course it's going to take a lot of effort. I'm sure anyone listening to this has some sort of a mental block or barrier that has stopped them from moving forward. And that's where the negative self-talk starts. And we are talking about a regular average person here. But don't you think that successful people don't go through negative self-talk? There is a reason that every rich person says that being rich is not the answer. Sure, it solves a ton of problems. We all know that. But it does not solve the negative self-talk, the crappy thoughts that we have every now and then. Everyone is fighting some sort of an internal battle. So the answer lies in the daily habits. But I'll say one more thing here, that the answer lies in the daily habits. But I've learned this lately is that it is okay to have a bad day. Yes, today is a bad day and I'm okay with that. Instead of cursing at myself and saying that, why am I such a loser? I'm trying to slow down and accept that today is a shit day. That means that today I'll do the bare minimum that is required for my target, for my goal, and then I'll wait for tomorrow morning. New game starts tomorrow morning. I've said that many, many times in the last couple of months. At least that's my current way of thinking. Think about it. All I'm saying is that we are way too hard on ourselves on our off days. And we need to take a chill pill there, because when you are too hard on yourself, when you bring in the negative self-talk, it is affecting you in ways that you don't even realize it right now. Yes, we need to push harder. There is a difference between procrastinating versus having a really bad off day, because the most successful of successful people also would have off days. At least that's what I like to think. So an average person like you and I, obviously we are going to have it, but that doesn't make us losers. That just makes us humans. Shaping a new identity takes years and years, right? At least that's what I think. So these are the 3 takeaways from this book. Now let's move on to the quotes that I read in this book. These are my favorite. Self-sabotage is when we say we want something and then go about making sure it doesn't happen. That sounds so stupid, but that's just how we are wired. We all do this. The best person walking among us does that, because that's what makes us humans. The second one is the mountain in front of you is the part of you that doesn't believe it deserves to reach the top. This one makes you think about limiting behaviors, because we believe that we don't deserve to get what we want because we can't really see it yet. That's because it's a completely different person out there that you don't even know what he looks like, because the answer lies in the daily steps. You're trying to bring out a completely new sculpted version who is sitting at the top of that mountain. And the last one is growth is uncomfortable because you have never been here before. You have never been this version of you. This is an extension to the last one. We need to be comfortable sitting in discomfort. I've said that before, and I always believe in that, because doing that will allow us to reach places we haven't been before. That's the whole point of this path. Yes, it is going to take a lot of trial and error, but that's what's required to reach the goals. That is absolutely possible, but it's a mindset issue that requires fixing first. All right, long story short, the first lesson is to avoid self-sabotage behavior, identify what the issue is, and lay out a plan. Become a good planner in a very tactical way. And if you cannot see too far out, that's fine. Just identify the behavior, what the issue is, and only look at the very next step. Break down the entire problem into many, many, many steps. This will build the self-confidence that will give you the momentum to take the following step. Yes, we need to work hard, build new habits if we want a different outcome for our future. But be ready for crappy, shitty days. Yes, we need to work hard. We need to know the difference between off days and procrastination. But the answer lies in daily steps. That's all it is. That notion that if we have bad days, it means that we don't have what it takes is not a healthy way of living life. In that moment, it will feel like we don't have what it takes, but the next day gets better. The next day will get better. Just slow your mind down and try to tell yourself that, yes, today is a bad day. I'm going to do the bare minimum that my work requires, and I'll wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a better day. New game starts tomorrow. I've said that many times to myself. It sounds weird, but at least it helps me go by through my shitty days. I like this book. Brianne did a good job. As I said, it's not groundbreaking, but it's for someone who thinks they are stuck in the moment. And because of that, I actually bought her second book. It's called 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think. Not her second book. She has written many books before, but this is on my list now. For me, this book is not, as I said, this book is not about actionable items. It's not about how-tos, because in the grand scheme of things, it's not about that. It's about how we fight our internal battles. Yes, everybody has outer battles, but we usually forget to conquer the inner ones first, because that's where it all starts. And to conquer these internal obstacles, the battles, we get there by understanding us, what we tell ourselves, what fears do we have, what kind of emotional intelligence is required to be developed, and most importantly, how we deal with our bad days. The ultimate battle will be won when we climb that mountain, which is you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you like this episode, wherever you're listening or watching, leave a comment. It might help me. I don't know. Oh, let me know if you know of any people who might be interesting enough to join this podcast, who are willing enough to come on the pod. I'm open to suggestions. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.